Hello, friend.
Hello, everyone. We're glad you could join us once again. I was out in the garden this morning and saw the iris blooming. I have an early iris that blooms, and it's yellow and it's very pretty. The lilacs are blooming here.
Yes, a few of the varieties.
Yes, there's smoke in the air because they're burning in the Flint Hills yet. Even though it's very windy, I'm surprised that they can burn. But
It's
maybe
so windy here.
It's probably so barren there. There's not much else.
Yeah.
So they can burn. I don't know, but there is a little smoke in the air. And if you have allergies, nettles is a good thing to be drinking. It helps with the allergies a whole lot.
Yes, nettles is a natural antihistamine. And boy, when I feel those allergies bothering me, I really step up the ingestion of the nettles and reishi. Reishi actually is an herb, a mushroom, of course, you may know, that has been shown to actually help both the symptoms of allergies and the cause of allergies. So I like to rely on both of those, and sometimes goldenrod too, which can sometimes help with allergies.
Yes. If you've been reading the April chapter in the book, and this book is available here at the shop and we can ship it out, I wrote about pass-along plants.
Oh, yes.
Well, growing up, everything was passed along, passed down, and so we have pass-along plants also. And when someone admires a plant in your garden, what we do is give them seed from it, or maybe dig up a rhizome,
Yeah,
a bulb.
or a little baby that's already coming up, like lemon balm. Like we share lots of lemon balm babies.
And give them a start of it. So those are pass-along plants. And a sweet friend stopped by this week, and she brought some of her pass-along plants. Lily of the Valley.
Love that.
They're wonderful. They're invasive, but they're in the perfect place. They're fine.
But they like shade, right?
They like shade.
And so they're only invasive like in your shady area. And then once they reach the sun, they don't grow there.
That's right. And Lily of the Valley are just beautiful. And hers had to be thin, so she brought them over, and she went ahead and planted them on the north side of my house.
Oh, nice.
And that will be a wonderful thing to watch grow and for them to spread out. They're just those little stems of little bell-like flowers are just divine.
Like little fairy flowers.
They truly are, because they don't get very tall at all. Just beautiful little things.
They are. They're beautiful. I have a few that she planted for me too. So
good. Well, the full moon is coming up soon. It is called the pink full moon. And the reason they call it the pink full moon is they would look out into the prairie and they would see the wild phlox blooming. But what it is for us is a henbit, or maybe
purple dead nettle,
or what we call creeping Charlie, which is ground ivy.
Yeah, a lot of times when you look out of the fields this time of year, you'll see it looks like fields of lavender almost.
It does.
Yeah.
It is beautiful. And a lot of people ask us, what is that blooming, as they drive out here and see it across the fields, the open fields. It blooms in the early spring.
Yeah, I saw a Facebook post about somebody was asking about what is this? What's flower is this? And then of course there's a whole discussion about it was probably henbit is what they said. Yeah. It's either usually henbit or purple dead nettle this time of year, and people were calling it a weed and noxious, and I said, of course I couldn't restrain myself. I had to comment too, and I said, I think the words that weed and noxious are really misguided when they're applied to henbit and purple dead nettle too, because why hate on these plants? They don't do, as far as I can see, any harm at all. They provide early food source for bees and other insects. They're beautiful. And both of those plants, both henbit and purple dead nettle, they disappear all by themselves within 2 or 3 weeks. It's not like they hang around all summer long. They have their little heyday and then they're done. They're gone, they dry up, and they disappear. And when they do that, they also provide a natural mulch for fields and things like that. So I really don't think that they're doing any harm, and they're so much better than dead-looking pesticide-laden soils. When you look out at a field and all it is just dirt, and it doesn't have things growing in it, then you know that it's just laden with noxious pesticides.
Dead soil.
Exactly. And you don't want dead soil. You want your foods to grow in living soil.
You do.
And, monotonous grass lawns are not, to me, attractive at all. I think it's much prettier to have a few wildflowers growing in your lawn, and henbit and purple dead nettle are both so short. They don't do any harm at all, and they're just beautiful. I think we really need to reframe how we think about these things for the sake of the ecosystem, for sure, especially during this month, which is the month of Earth Day, which of course we think Earth Day should be every day.
Well, it's sad that we have to be reminded to take care of the planet.
Yes.
Our home that we live in.
Yes.
Yes, it's also the month of Arbor Day, so there
Yeah.
is a lot going on this
Lot
month.
going on for sure this month. As we're talking about Earth Day, I've been thinking a little bit about a type of pollution that most of us don't really, it's not on our radar. When we think about pollution, most of us think about water pollution, air pollution, pesticides, chemical pollution. But did you know that one of the fastest growing global pollutants is light pollution? It's something that most of us have never heard of or thought about, but I think light pollution really deserves a lot of attention. Did you know that there's actually an International Dark Sky Week, which is held during the week of the new moon in April? So it was earlier this month. This is the first time I've ever heard about it, and so I'll be putting it on the calendar for every year to come.
Sounds like a good thing.
It is. It's to raise awareness of how artificial light can be harmful. They disrupt animal habitats. All forms of life have relied on predictable rhythms of the day and the night for billions of years. That's how all life forms evolved. And artificial light really disrupts the biological clocks of all creatures that are exposed to it. It affects sleep cycles, migration, reproductive behaviors, and the ability to stay safe from predators. Yeah, and I think we just don't think about these things. Birds actually are one of the most affected because they can misinterpret artificial light at night as a longer period of daylight, so it disrupts their biological clocks that trigger the timing of their migration, which can be deadly. I know we talk often about how we miss the birds. Yeah, it does. But we don't think about it. So it can affect both the orientation of their migration because they're looking at signals from the earth, which light is one of those, that how light's reflected on the earth, and artificial light affects that, and navigation, of course. The position of the sun and the stars are used to navigate for birds during the long distance journeys, and artificial lights, they really confuse that. So I think it's important for us to think about. And also another thing to consider is that artificial lights can alter the behavior of nocturnal insects and other prey that birds rely on for food, which can change the ecosystem itself and impact the entire food chains. And of course, our favorite peepers, amphibians like frogs and toads and peepers, their nighttime croaking is part of their breeding, and that is often disrupted by artificial light. So it interferes with their reproduction and reduces populations. So these are just very, very few reasons why. There are lots more reasons why artificial light is harmful, and to us too. We are creatures who live on the earth, who have evolved with natural light. And so artificial light at night negatively affects our circadian rhythms and health, increasing our risk for obesity, sleep disorders, depression, diabetes, breast cancer, and more. So it's important to recognize, we are creatures of the earth also, and it affects us too. So there are things that we can do. What can we do? Well, consider when you are lighting that you are looking at the direction the light is going, the color of the light, the brightness of the light, and the necessity of the light. So to expand on those, when you're looking at the directional light, you want to, especially lights that are outside, shield and aim light so that the light only falls downward, right where it's being useful. Light that goes up is very disruptive to the natural world, especially birds. Use warm colored light. Warm colored light is what we naturally, it triggers our circadian rhythms because daylight is blue, but evening light is amber colored. So we want to use amber colored lights whenever possible and avoid any blue light bulbs. Unless you are like, we have a little gemstone display out here at the shop. Well, daylight is what we use on that, but all of our other bulbs are all warm colored. And when you're shopping for LED lights, you want to look on the back of the box or the side of the box, and it tells you there's a range of kelvins, and you want warmer light. We always look for that when we shop for LED lights. And you want to make sure that your lights are no brighter than they're necessary, especially outside. Again, we're talking about to save money and reduce glare. And lights outside only on when they're actually needed. So maybe using timers or motion sensors. We want to make sure that we're shutting off all unnecessary outdoor lights at night, and really indoor lights too, which can also have a glow. And so there's, it saves us money, and it also helps to do our part in reducing light pollution in our area.
Well, I'm amazed at some of the new suburbs that go in. You drive around in the evening at the night, there are lights all over the place.
It drives me
It is,
crazy.
there's so much light, it's almost like a daylight. It is unbelievable.
Yeah, I would be so upset if I was one of their neighbors because we have a development right up the road that
Mhm.
yeah they're like have an acreage and they have all these outdoor lights that are on all night long.
All night.
Why are you living in the country?
Yes.
And if their neighbors, I mean, I love to sleep in complete total darkness.
I do too.
That's really the healthiest thing that you can
It
do is sleep in complete darkness. And there's no way to get complete darkness when your neighbor has all these bright lights on outside. So yeah.
Or yours, or it maybe the neighborhood requires that you have them. I would challenge that.
And
I would
that's
be the first one to challenge
that's the key too, is to
Mhm.
be an advocate for the natural world. And if your HOA requires something like
Yeah.
that, it's time to do some education.
And I've read where people cannot really look at the stars or the Milky Way and see them because of all the light pollution that's going on surrounding a city or out in the suburbs. And they have to travel quite a long ways just to find a spot.
Yes.
Sometimes it's almost out of state. We who live in the Midwest, we're a little more fortunate.
We are.
In that.
Our cities are fewer and farther between, and so we have that opportunity. I can remember I grew up out in Nebraska in the country, and we only lived about 5 miles out in the country, if even that. But I can remember when I was, dating in my older years, and I can remember, going from town where I was out with friends or whatever, and then I'd drive home late at night, and the difference, I would just stand outside of my car and just revel at the beauty of the sky just a few miles out of town that you could not see in town. And that is another part of light pollution, is our own ability to wonder at the night sky and be in awe and amazement. For as long as humans have been alive, looking at the night sky has been a source of inspiration and wonder and science discovery, curiosity, which kids today miss out on when they can't look up at the stars in the Milky Way.
They need to find the Milky Way for sure.
For sure.
And some of the important stars around.
Yeah, the clusters of stars. Yeah.
Well, some of you have heard me talking in the past few weeks about the 52-week challenge that I have become involved with thanks to a good friend and my sewing circle. So I've been challenging myself really every week. And the guide, our teacher, gives us something to go on. And then from that, we do everything else on our own. And part of my goal was I was not going to buy one thing, no fabric, no nothing. And I'm not a sewer, so I don't have lots of fabric around. But I have little scraps here and there of this or that I may have used in a scrapbook. And so I am making everything stretch and everything go and work with the way it needs to work with. Well, last week I showed you what I called the eclipse moon, and it had the veil over it to darken it just a little bit. And this week was also another one on the eclipse and the moon. We've kind of extended that, I think, that for those 2 weeks because it has been such an important event in different areas where you live. Now, the instructor lives in France, so it's even different there. And so we have our own interpretation of what it is and what it should look like. But the lesson this week was on making stacked stitches. And stacked stitches I had never heard of. And so I look at it and I go, well, that looks a little hard. But, if with everything, you try it, and it's not hard at all once you've tried it. But it's just mainly getting in there and working with the challenge. So my moon this week is done on an old piece of denim vest. And this denim vest actually had holes in it. I'd worn it that much. I wore it around the house a lot as a second layer. But I took it apart finally, and I saved all the good pieces. And this shows the stacked stitches on it. And I started one stitch, and I decided, well, I don't think I like this at all. And I stopped. I laid it down on the table. And during the night, I happened to think, why don't I just turn around so it faces me as I stitch? That was the secret for me to work with the stitches. And yesterday afternoon, I sat there and stitched them out in a short amount of time, really. And I really enjoyed it. One of the things I did, and she suggested doing, I've done it before, and that is when you don't want a thread to look too harsh, such as black. I will use one strand of black and one strand of brown, and I mix them together, and you can hardly tell the difference, yet it softens that black. Well, with this, on the sun rays, we used one strand of yellow and one strand of orange. and we mix them together. And so it's a fun thing to do. So I'm ready to sew this into the page in my book. This was number 15, week number 15.
It's absolutely beautiful, Mom, as
Thank
all
you.
of them are.
Oh, aren't they
so
interesting?
Interesting, yeah.
They truly are. So now I know how to do the stack stitch.
Always learning something
Yes.
new.
And so with that, we have a quote to end our session today.
And this is out of Mom's book, Gatherings from the Good Earth. If you don't have your copy, as Mom said, you can get your copy here. It's meant to be read all through the year, month by month. And this quote is from the Women's Environment and Development Organization of the Women's Foreign Policy Council. I pledge allegiance to the earth and to the flora, fauna, and human life it supports. One planet, indivisible, with safe air, water, and soil, economic justice, and equal rights, and peace for all. May it be so.
And with that, we'll see you next week.
Good earth blessings to you.